and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this Design Space tutorial, we're going to be learning how to design graphical mandalas like this one of the cute little doggies. You can do this directly in Design Space using images from within Design Space and Cricut Access. And it does take a little bit of time, so this is a long video, but the results are stunning. And this type of mandala would look wonderful on a t-shirt or maybe even framed on a shadow box or something like that. Now they are designed to be cut out with vinyl, not cardstock, because if you notice, none of the little pictures are actually connected. So if you try doing this out of cardstock, they're all gonna just come apart and not be stuck to each other. But with vinyl, you can just weed away all the excess and you'll be left with everything in position, ready to put it on whatever it is that you're putting it on. Okay, so let's jump straight in and start designing. First, we need to draw a grid which will be our guide so we know where we're going to place all of the different images on our mandala. Go over to Shapes and choose the score line. Once it's inserted, change it to a cut line which will make the line go straight instead of dashed, and then make the height of the design you want to make. So I'm going to choose 8 inches. Just move it over into the middle. You might need to zoom in a bit just to make everything a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Now for making these, it's going to be really helpful to have the grid lines on your design space. If you can't see the grid lines, then click on the icon on the top left of the 3 lines called a hamburger icon, and then go down to where it says Settings, and then under Canvas Grid, make sure Full Grid is ticked, and then click Done. These grid lines will make it easier for us to put things symmetrically in each of our sections. So I've got my line here, and what I've done is I've put it on the grid line so it lines up along the vertical lines, and then the top and the bottom are against horizontal lines. And again, by doing that, it's going to be easier for us to place all our images in the correct place. Right click on the line and then press Duplicate. We need to rotate this, so click on the little arrow and then hold down the Shift key on your computer. And what that does is it means when you rotate, it does it at specific angles, which makes it easier for us to get an exact rotation. I'm now going to line this up so that it's halfway between the middle of the vertical line. You don't need to worry about getting it spot on exact because we're going to align it all properly once we've made the lines, but try and get it roughly in place to help you with the visuals. We need to do the duplication twice more and then rotate it so it goes diagonally, and that's going to form each of the spikes for our 8-point mandala. So this time I'm just going to move it twice to get a 45-degree angle, and then I need to do it once more and just move that round and roughly place it in the middle. To get all of those lines perfectly aligned up, just select them all in your layers panel by holding your Shift key down and clicking each one of them. Then go to Align in the top and then press Center. So that's just lined them all up so that they're perfectly crossing in the middle of each of the spikes. And this is now our points which we're going to use for aligning up all the pictures on our mandala. To make it easier to turn this on and off to check what we're doing, select all the layers again, and then at the top press Group. This puts all of those lines in a group, so if we click the little eye next to where it says group, we can hide the whole thing nice and easily just with one click. Now these lines aren't actually going to be cut when we go to cut our mandala at the end. They're really just a guide for us as we're adding all the images on. So it's important that we can hide them, otherwise they'll get cut out, which we don't want. Alright, so now it's time to choose some images to go on our mandala. I'm doing a dog themed one, so I'm going to go over to Images and have a little think about what I could put on my mandala. I'm going to start with a dog bone because that's something that's fairly symmetrical, which is going to make it a bit easier to start with. under art type, I'm going to choose cut only because I'm doing one that's going to be cut, a mandala image that's going to be cut. So I don't want anything that's set to draw or score or anything like that because it's not going to show up properly. So I'm just having a little look. I might actually put dog bone. That might help. And then there's one here. So I'm going to choose that one and then press Insert Images to get it onto my design. That's quite large at the minute, so I'm just going to shrink it down and have a think about where this could go. Now this is going to be one of my first images I put on, so it can be a bit big because I've got all the space to play with. I'm going to rotate it to fit on this top vertical line, and again hold down the Shift key to make sure you can rotate it exactly. And then I'm actually going to take it slightly off center without my Shift key down to line up the gaps. If I zoom in there, okay, I'm happy with how that's sitting on it anyway. And I'm going to move that right to the top so it sits right up against the top of the lines for each one. I'm actually going to line up the bottom gap with the line on my design. There we go. Okay, so now I've got that one in place, I need to duplicate it on each of the different sides of the mandala. So click it, right click and duplicate, and then with the Shift key held down, rotate it 90 degrees and then place it on the next piece of the mandala that matches. So I'm going to put this on 4 of the sides. And when you're lining it up, make sure you keep the same alignment. So I lined up this bottom bit with my vertical and horizontal lines. So just make sure you do that on all of them so that they're in the same place on each of the spikes. Alright, so that's the start of that done. I'm just going to select all of these bones and group them together, just to keep things nice and organised in our layers. Alright, so what else can I put on here? Let's go back to images. I'm just going to search for dog this time and have a little scroll, see what I can find. You're looking for images that are quite simple because we're going to be cutting this quite small. The mandala itself will be big, but all the images on it will be quite small just because we're going to be using so many of them. So you don't want anything too complicated or your Cricut might struggle when it comes to cutting it out. I like this little Westie, so I'm going to insert him. But I don't want his eye because that will be absolutely tiny and impossible to cut out. So if there are any little parts of an image that you don't want to be on there, go down to where it says contour in the bottom right and just click on the bit you don't want and then close out of there and that will be gone. So now it's just the outline of the Westie. I'm going to change the colour to black instead of brown because I want all my images to be black so that I can see how the mandala will end up with everything the same colour. He needs to be a bit smaller and I'm going to place him round about here. Actually, I'm going to move him down a bit. Yep, I prefer him there. So I'm going to right click and duplicate and rotate and then make sure I put him in the same place. So because I've got the grid lines on, I can see this exactly. So that top Westie is 1, 2, 3 sitting on the top of that third square line. So here I can do the same. So 1, 2 and then sit him on the top of that third line. I've got the horizontal and vertical lines going through the lowest part of his belly, so I can make sure that they're all aligned this way as well. I'm just going to do the same thing for the other two. Make sure he's in the same place and that the line goes through that low point in his little belly. The more you can get everything put in the same place in each of the sections, the more of the better your finished mandala will look, because it'll look more symmetrical and everything will line up nicely. Using the zoom tool in the bottom left is really helpful to make sure you're getting things lined up. Now I've got my 4 little Westies. I'm going to put them in a group as well. Group. Alright, so time to move on. What else can I put on here? Seeing as I'm doing a dog theme mandala, I think paw prints would be good. So go to images again. This one. What I like to do when I'm doing mandalas is to make sure that they end up circular. I do several circular type borders around it using images. And to do this, first go into shapes and choose circle. I'm going to make it a different colour that's really obvious, and then just drag it in the layers panel so that it's right at the bottom. So it can be a bit tricky to get it below those grid lines, but there we have it. And then make it bigger so that the edge of the circle is where you want your patterned images to go on the edges. So I'm filling mine in here, and I'm going to create a circle of paw prints that's going to line up with the edge of this. You don't want to use the align tool again to put this exactly in the middle of the grid lines, because then you risk those grid lines moving, and then all the pictures that you painstakingly put into position won't be lined up anymore. Ask me how I know that. So I'm just making this as big as possible. Now I'm going to zoom in, get this paw print over here and make it black, and then turn it into a circular border. Okay, so I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller, and I want to start the circle by putting one on each of the spikes. So I'm going to work out how I want it aligned, and I think I'm going to put that line between the 2 middle bits of the paw print, because then I'm going to have a nice visual on each of the grid lines to be able to do it nicely. Okay, so line that up, and I'm lining it up so that the top of the image that I've chosen is touching the top line of the circle that we've drawn. Just like we did before, it's a case of duplicating it and rotating with the shift key down to make sure we're rotating in proportion, and put it against each of the grid lines. Try and get it as exact in the same position as you can every time. And when I've got my shift key down, I'm just rotating it once and then twice for each of these grid lines. So you're rotating it 45 degrees for each of the spikes. I've now got my paw prints on each of the spikes that we drew earlier, and now I want to fill in the gaps in the middle. So I want 2 paw prints to go in the middle of all of these. Choose the one at the top, right click and duplicate, and this time when we rotate, it's just going to go 1 to rotate it. So I'm going to put that one in, duplicate again, and move him. If you can't fit 2 in, you might need to make your 2 in the middle a little bit smaller. I think I'm going to make mine smaller, a little bit smaller anyway, just to add a bit of interest. So if I make 1 smaller, duplicate it, and then rotate it once, put it back in there. So that I don't have to do so much work, I'm going to select both of those layers in the middle, and then press the weld button down the bottom. That's going to join them together so that they're now on 1 layer. So when I right click and duplicate, I don't have to do it so many times because they are already done. And scroll down to the circle layer and just hide it. You can see we've got this lovely circle of paw prints going around the design. I'm going to select all the paw prints in the layers and group them together. It's just easier if you want to change something later if everything's in groups, because it lets you find things easier because you can hide them, collapse the group, so you've not got so many layers to look through. Alright, so our mandala is starting to take shape. If I just hide those grid lines, you can see this is how it's appearing now. So we need to have a little think about what else we can put in here. Toggle those back on, and then I'm going to go into images and I'm going to type in flourish to find some nice swirly bits that we can add to the design. So I'm going to choose a few. I want ones that aren't too complicated, again because we're going to be cutting this quite small with all the little pictures, so we don't want something that's going to be too hard for our Cricut machine to cut. I'm going to choose a few different ones and then see what looks right once it is all together. If they come onto your screen big like these have done, just move them all over to the side, make them smaller so we can see what we've got to work with. One thing I haven't done yet, which I should have been doing regularly, is saving my work. You should save every 5 minutes or so, and I completely forgot. Just in case anything happens and you don't want to lose all your work, so the more you save, the less risk you've got of losing everything. So I've just saved that one. I need to fill in this gap between the dogs on the side, so I'm kind of liking this one. Change it to black and make it smaller, and then I'm going to put it in this gap here. It's going to be a little bit off center just because of how those dogs are positioned. So the dogs aren't actually symmetrical, so these little bits in the middle aren't going to be quite on our grid line, but that's okay. You're not always going to be dealing with symmetrical images on these. In fact, quite often you're not going to be, so you do need to be a little bit flexible. So I'm kind of positioning this just based on the dogs rather than based on my guidelines to get them all kind of in the middle of the dogs. I'm still trying to make it even between each of the sides. Okay, there we go. So that's a little bit more filled in now. So what are the other flourishes we've got? Just gonna group them. And let's see. I'm gonna use this one. And at the moment, if you look in the layers panel, you can see it's 2 layers. I've got kind of an outer border and then the main flourish. I don't need the border, so I'm going to right click and delete that one so that I've just got one colour, which I'll make black. I'm going to add this across my diagonal lines on each of the different sides to kind of form an outline to my mandala image. Making these mandalas is a bit trial and error to see what works and what doesn't. You might find when you've added an image you don't like how it looks, but the beauty of Design Space is that you can just delete them, delete those layers, move them or whatever you want to do, get rid of them, and then carry on with something else. But I'm happy with how this is looking. And if I just turn off my grid lines, yep, that's looking really cool. I'm happy. I think I will put this flourish in between each of those ones I just did. It's going to need to be quite small. Alright, so I'm going to put this either side of the dog bone. To make it go the other side, I'm going to have to flip it. So duplicate it just like you would normally, and then go to flip in the top and then flip horizontal. And that's going to shift it for me so it's a mirror image of the one on the right. And doing that just adds to the symmetry of the design a little bit more. Okay, so you can see we are a little bit off our symmetry in places because the lining is a little bit different, but It's not so bad that I'm going to worry about it at this moment in time. I'm going to weld these like I did with the paw prints earlier to smush them together, and then go through and add them to each of the sections. Now see, I think I just moved this by mistake. Okay, I'm going to have to play with this in a minute. You can see it's touching there, which isn't ideal. That's okay, I can show you how to fix it if you have got things that are not quite lined up. Okay, so this bit here where it's touching, I think it's because this swirl isn't in the right place. So I need to ungroup these swirls, and I'm just going to move that one along a bit. And now that is looking better. So I can regroup them. It now becomes a case of just kind of filling in the gaps as much as you can. And it's quite nice to reuse bits that you've already got on the image to bring in some familiarity throughout the design. So I'm going to use some more dog bones to fill in some of these gaps. Let's put my grids back on. Find my dog bone, duplicate. This time it's going to need to be quite a bit smaller, and I'm going to put it, oops, I just rotated it without shift down. No! There we go. I'm going to put it in this gap between the swirly bits on the outside and the paw prints in the middle. You can see I've got another problem here with the paw prints not touching that flourish. So I'm just going to ungroup this so I can move it and move that flourish out a bit. There we are. I think this one could probably do with coming up a tiny bit as well. And then the dog bone I've got there. Oops. If you find that when you're trying to move something it selects something else, it's because of your order in the layers. So just the thing that you don't want selected, just drag it down a bit, and then you'll be able to move the thing that you do want to move. There, so I've got some more dog bones, and I think I could even add some more. We're trying to make it so that it's kind of obvious that we do have these lines of the mandala, even though we're not going to show the physical lines when we cut it, we're going to hide them. By adding the images in a kind of line order, does that make sense? It probably doesn't. Then it helps us create that mandala effect of the symmetry. Right, nearly there. What else can I do? Okay, I need something to go in the middle, and I like putting something circular right in the middle, so I'm going to have another look for something in here. And I think I remember there being an image of a paw print in a circle. Here we go. So I'm going to make that black, make it smaller, and then just put that right in the middle here. Alright, well I've still got quite a few gaps around this middle bit. I don't want to make the circle any bigger because I think it'll look a bit too big. So possibly some more dog bones. Let's have a go. They might be a bit small really. If I make the paw print smaller. Yep, that's fine. I think that'll be alright to cut. I don't think it'll be too small. As long as the mandala as a whole is cut fairly big, that should be fine. Design Space is starting to be a bit laggy now because I've got so many layers on. Right, we're very nearly there now with our mandala. We filled in most of the spaces, and if I just group all these dog bones to make the layers easier to see. Hide some of these. I'm not going to use these other flourishes, so I'm just going to delete them. It was good to have a selection on the screen though, so we could see what was going to look good where. Okay, so hide those guides, and now that is looking pretty good. There's only a few more things I want to do, and that's to add in some little tiny hearts, just because, you know, I love dogs, so it's a dog themed mandala. It should have some little hearts on it. And using hearts and stars and other little shapes is a nice way of filling in any gaps that you've got on your design. They're also fairly simple to cut, so you can make them small. And here is my finished shaped mandala design. Isn't it cute? I put in some more hearts, and I kind of love how these hearts and the bone kind of make it look like a dog's face on the edge. I think that really adds to it, and it's quite quirky and cute. If you haven't already, make sure you hide those guidelines that we made at the start, otherwise you're going to get weird cut marks throughout your mandala when you cut it. And now we are ready to go and hit make it once. Importantly, you've just given it one more save. Now if you have maybe gone a little bit bigger than your intended design, just check the size now. So the easiest way to do that is to select everything that you've put and then group it. And now when you click on that group, it will tell you the size in here. So I was going for 8 inches. So I want my height to be 8. Just make it all a bit smaller to make sure it's going to fit on whatever you want to put it on. You might also find at this point, if you select it all and rotate it with the shift key again, press down. I'm going to have to zoom out. You might prefer it at a bit of an angle to how it looked before. So this is how I designed it, with the bones on each of the 4 corners like a compass. But if you rotate it twice with your shift key down to get the other side, you might just find you prefer how it looks that way. And actually I do kind of prefer that one, so I think I'll stick with that. I guess it doesn't really matter, because when you cut it out of your vinyl, you can put it onto whatever you're sticking it to, whichever direction you want. But it's just nice to see how it's going to look before you click make it. Alright, so I'm going to save that once more now that I've changed the rotation and the size. And then I'm going to click make it. And you'll notice when you do this that all of your bits are all over the mat. They're not in the position that we've just spent ages doing. And if you cancel that, I'll show you how to fix that. So I'm just going to make it more obvious and just change this all to white and try again. Okay, so now you can see better. All of the pictures are all over the place, and that is not what we want. So to fix that, cancel, click on the group of everything, and then down the bottom click attach. It might take a little while because we've got lots of different layers in there, but now we've attached it. When we go to make it, this time it's all in position. And that's what you want to make sure you do, otherwise you're just going to end up with little pictures all over your vinyl and you're not going to be able to put it back together again. That's just a jigsaw puzzle too far. So there you go. That is how you design a image mandala directly in Design Space, and then how you attach it all together so that you can go and cut it. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial, and well done if you've made it to the end, because it was really long. If you're interested in designing the 3D mandala letters yourself, which have been really popular in the Cricut community over the last few months, I have a separate video on how to do that, so I've linked that at the top now or in the description below this video. So you can go ahead and learn how to do those as well, or just crack on with designing your own image mandala. For more Cricut Design Space tutorials, please subscribe to my channel because I release new tutorials every week. I do long ones like this, but also each week I release several episodes of Design Space Daily, which is my series of short and snappy Cricut Design Space tutorials to teach you how to use all of the different tools and features within Design Space in about 5 minutes a day, so you can fit that in nice and easily to help you learn more about Design Space. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below. It really does help me with my YouTube channel to help me create more videos like this one. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.